I'm Steve. I'm the owner, creator of Eight Arch Brewing in Wimborne. I was wholly the brewer, not so much anymore. Mark does all of the brewing now, and I sit behind the desk, but you'll always find me behind the tap room on a Friday. It was what I've said to many people. I think it was a case of trying to brew cheap beer at home with no intention of starting a brewery. It was like a little hobby thing that gathered pace, and it sort of escalated quite quickly into where I am now, and into a big brewery. But it was a bit of fun at the start just to make it at home, and then when you start looking into different hops and malts, and I spoke to a brewer in the very early days, and they said you'll get bitten by the brewing bug, and that is very much what happened with me. Yeah. Well, I obviously with the movement in the beer scene and things, there's quite cool and funky names out there. I wanted something to be linked to my town because I am Wimborne born and bred, and I wanted something linked to it. I didn't want to just come up with a weird and random name for it. So we were sat down around the table in the very, very, very early days before I actually physically had the brewery. And we were going to be called Wimborne Beer Company, but it didn't sit quite right with me. So then we started exploring different parts of Wimborne, etc. And it just came up in conversation one day. Julian's Bridge has got 8 arches. And as soon as I heard 8 arch, something just clicked. I don't know, I can't explain what it was. I've got no link to that bridge apart from it being Wimborne. And it just fitted for me. And that's, so it comes from the Julian's Bridge. It's got the 8 arches. I'd probably say one of the fan favourites is Corbel, which is I think it was the third beer I ever brewed commercially, which is a 5.5 West Coast IPA. Whenever that comes on, we get a lot of requests for it. It's not on a huge amount of time at the tap room, but it is available in cans. But I'd probably say that one's pretty much up there. But I'd probably say it is taken over by Square Logic now, which is the 4.2 Pel. It is the beer that everyone wants. We probably sell at the tap room over the weekend 3 to 1 of that compared to all the others together. So it is the most popular one. It's a great beer, really, really popular. We don't use any local companies in the brewing side of things, but I mean the hops we use are predominantly American hops, so not very local to us. We use a bit of Southern Hemisphere and a bit of German hops as well, but predominantly all of the malt we use is British. But with the supplies for the tap room things, we try and keep it local or small producer for instead of mass produced big companies. Like for example, the snacks we have behind the bar, they're produced in Ferndown. The non-alcoholic cans that we have here, they're produced by a small independent brewery in Bath. Spirits, we use Conker Gin from Bournemouth, which probably a lot of people do know now. So we try and keep it, the taproom side of things is small, local as possible. The wines that we stock, they're not English wines, but we use a wholesaler in Leamington. So again, we try and keep it as local and small produced as we possibly can. Yeah. Not a traditionalist. I've got nothing against traditional beers. I would happily have a best bitter. And we did produce one. I think it was more of a case in the early days. I thought I had to produce one to be a brewery, but times change, and we don't do the traditional things. I mean, we do a beer, High Winds, which is more on the nod towards traditional, but we're more focused on the hop forward beers, drinkable. We do a Kolsch, which is a German style beer, so I suppose you could call that traditional-ish. But no, we definitely head more towards the more modern style beers, and we do stouts and we do porters. I suppose that you could class as a traditional style of beer, but we try and keep on the modern side of things, and it's popular. There was one thing when I was going to start the brewery. I mean, obviously I wasn't going to move to Birmingham or London or anything, which other people have done to start their breweries, because there's a huge amount of breweries in the London and Bristol areas and things like that. But, I'm Wimborne, as I said before, I'm born and bred Wimborne, and I wanted to start the brewery and I wanted it to be in Wimborne. I was fortunate enough, looking around at the very start to try and find, somewhere to brew, that I managed to find a unit in Wimborne. Started very small in that unit and then moved across into the next door unit. Now we're into this unit where we are now. So it's, it is very much, I wanted it to be local. I wanted it to be in Wimborne. If it was the case that when I was starting out that I had to find somewhere in Bournemouth, so big. But, I just fortunate we did find a place in Wimborne, and it's my hometown and it's now the home of my brewery. There's two. I'm going to allow myself to have two. I think one of the most important things was the first one, which was for Cornwall, the West Coast IPA that I mentioned before. It was, back in, I think that was awarded in 2017 at the National Awards for SEBA. So we're members of SEBA, the Society of Independent Brewers. And we entered we're in the Southwest region, so we entered beer into the Southwest region. And it won its category in the Southwest. Then it goes to the Nationals, and it won its category. I think there's 8 regions in SEBA in total. So in its category, there were 7 other beers. It won its category nationally. And then it went, if you win the category award, then it goes on to be judged against all the categories in the competition. It come 3rd overall. So I think that was a very big one for us. That was our first national award. We've won many awards in the Southwest and nationally with SEBA and, beer festival awards across the country. But I'd probably then say that the biggest one for us was Square Logic, the 4.2 Pale, when it won the National Small Pack Champion, in 2020, which is a bit unfortunate because it was just before lockdown. So I don't know if we gained any traction from winning the national award, but yeah, so it won the small pack of all the beers in the UK that got entered into it. So that was a pretty big one. So those two, every single one, I've always said to people, I've never started doing brewing to win awards, but they've come along the way. And it's a very nice, warm feeling inside to be able to win get recognised nationally for, with independent judges and beer sommeliers that, know what they're talking about. So hopefully we're doing something right by the looks of it. The vibe we want, and is what happens, is that it's very friendly, it's family oriented. We allow kids here, we allow dogs here. They have to be kept with their parents. We don't want them running around because accidents happen, people carrying butts and things. But we want a nice relaxed atmosphere. We have live music down here. We do other events. We've had comedy nights here, and then we've had events upstairs as well. We have private parties they hire out the areas for as well. So it's a case of a nice relaxed vibe. We have street food vendors here on Friday and Saturdays as well. So, come and enjoy some beers, have some good food. And if one thing I've always said to people is that if you see a table where there's 2 people sat on there and there's 2 or 3 of you, don't be afraid to ask to sit there. We encourage chat. We don't want people sat there. There's no problem if you sat there on your phone or whatever, or if you don't want people sat with you, but sit down, talk to people. You might meet someone interesting you didn't think you'd ever meet. We've got people who've come here, from way back in the beginning. We've been going 10 years now, and they met here just by chatting, and now they come here every single week to meet up, and they've become friends. And again, it's a nice warm feeling for me to know that we've created friendships from something here. So yeah, it's just a nice, really relaxed, friendly atmosphere. I don't drink an awful lot, not as much as I used to, so I'm getting older now. But I'd probably say my things that I really do enjoy are barrel-aged imperial stouts. Now, you can't have a lot of them. I mean, as I'm getting older, it takes effect a bit easier now. But there's some great beers out there. There's some great produced in the UK, and there's some great produced across Europe and America. But one of my favourites is Bourbon County from America. Each year it ranges from like 13% up to 15.5% barrel aged imperial stout. It's great to be able to just sit and just sip on it and taste the flavors, of the barrel and the excellently produced beer itself. There's a lot of people out there who like to sit and share bowls of wine. You can do the same with an imperial stout. The flavors just override. So that is my go-to out of work, but not too many of them though. Not too many.